Don't go anywhere, we're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apex Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apex Lab Mineral Concentrates. Apex Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. It's not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apex Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apexlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought I was going to say the website. Thanks. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good. Nice. Southeast Asian coffee, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Southeast Asian coffee, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What have I joined here?
All right. Hello, coffee community. I don't know if anyone is even ready, but I'm diving right in. Okay. Hello, everyone. As always, I am your host, Rowan Cook.
And I'm Ben Bicknell.
And it's just coffee!
Well, we are here to journey into all different corners of the coffee world. The glamorous, the dingy, cutting edge, the old school, tried and true. Ooh. And we're in search of people, stories, inspiration that can teach us some new ways of tackling the coffee future. So very excited to get into today's chat with some wonderful guests we'll introduce you to shortly. But first, Rowan, I'm going to throw out a few numbers and names here. And I want you to tell me, what are they all about?
Okay.
So let's start off here with 7,548, Hanoi, Vietnam.
Oh, God. Grains of rice in a bowl.
Close, but no cigar. 8,750, Baoshan, Yunnan in China.
Oh, my God. Kilogram of shrimp consumed per hour.
That's a lot of shrimp. But yes, that's close, but no. And a beautifully round 7,500, Vientiane, Laos.
Okay, I'm guessing there's something coffee related here. So coffee farms in Laos? I don't know.
That would be a lot of coffee farms in Vientiane as well. It's Vientiane, capital. Okay. But and 20, Newry, New South Wales.
Number of shrimp on the barbie. Back to shrimp.
Back to shrimp. We're going with a theme here. It's Just Shrimp podcast. Yeah. No.
What are these numbers?
These are the numbers of kilometers from our guests who are going to be joining us in a moment to these beautiful coffee producing regions.
Oh, okay. I honestly had no idea. I was so caught off guard.
Coffee producing one?
Okay.
But that last one, there was a little bit of a red herring, not a shrimp, but a red herring, another seafood kind of tangent. Yeah. But this was 20 kilometers to Zenfelds from our guests' residence, and they don't actually source coffee from these locations, from that location, but from all of these other beautiful regions around the world, they are bringing in some delicious coffees. And look, like most of the coffee consuming world, where coffee is produced is a long, long way away. There's some amazing exceptions happening where coffee producing and consuming are coming closer together in places like China and Brazil, obviously in Thailand, where they've got like both of those cultures close together. But in a lot of places traditionally around the world where consuming is happening, coffee is a long way away. And it is a mission to get coffee from all the way on the other side of the world to a roastery so we can kind of serve that out to our customers, right? And that's when you're using traditional, well-trodden paths of logistics and easy solutions. Now, our guests today have not taken the easy path. They've chosen those far-flung locations that maybe need a little bit more work to get the logistics and get the coffee transport happening. But I am very excited to introduce these folks today because they have started off a wonderful business that is showcasing coffees from these regions in Southeast Asia and are really pioneering a strong, sustainable supply chain. So very excited to welcome our guest today is Ames and Yos from Old Quarter Coffee.
Hey. And it's Amelia and YOSIR, but we're calling them Ames and Yos.
Getting Aussie on ya. Welcome, folks.
It suits us. Thanks, guys.
Yes, and love the shrimp reference, being that we're living in the home of the big prawn here in Ballina, so love it.
And for those outside of Australia, just so you know, we don't have, the budgets to be building giant landmarks and amazing attractions, the Eiffel Tower. What we do instead is we look at a town, go, what is it famous for? And sometimes not famous for, and just build a big version of it. We've got big shrimps, we've got big bananas, we've got big koalas. Every little country town in Australia just has a big statue of whatever that town is about.
It's a beautiful thing. Oversized fruit and animals. That's what we're all about in Australia, as everyone knows.
We need to do the big coffee bean.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Why hasn't anyone?
Melbourne needs a big coffee bean, doesn't it?
A big mascot.
You could even make it from like old recycled chaff or coffee, but something like that. Make it sustainable as well.
There you go, Ryan.
Yeah.
You're on it.
All right. So our guest today, Old Quarter Coffee, sourcing exclusively Southeast Asian coffees, doing it ethically. The first question is, you guys took a trip to Hanoi, and this kind of became the inspiration and the spark of this coffee journey. Can you give us a little insight into that?
Oh, it actually goes, it's a little bit deeper than that. That must be sort of the manufactured story on the website, but we can give you the background.
Well, we're getting the exclusive scoop on the pod. Screw the website.
Yeah,
the pod's where the info's at.
Oh, we would love to share with you. I mean, really it starts with Yos's journey and connection from a small farm in rural, I guess you could call it, New South Wales, all the way to Vietnam. Do you want to share?
Yeah. So I guess, I grew up on a farm in rural New South Wales, but I growing up in a rural community, I didn't really get a lot of exposure to, obviously different cultures and whatnot. My parents were really great, really worldly people. But my exposition and I guess the seeding foundation of Old Quarter is my dad actually took me to Vietnam when I was 16 years old. That was 2003. Basically blew my world open, and I fell in love with the place. Vietnam at that time was, coming out of some very, very hard economic times, and it resonated with me on a really, really deep level. And the people there and where they were going was it was very inspiring to witness. So after that initial 2 weeks, I immediately, developed a plan, started working my butt off to head back to Vietnam between my holidays, school holidays between year 11 and 12. So my parents gave us the grace to head back over there. And
just imagine it's Yo's cargo pants.
Yeah, 90s. Yeah, 3/4.
Yeah. Go by himself. I don't know.
Some bleached blonde hair. What?
No tips.
It's all coming back around. Bring it back.
I had blonde hair back then. How's that?
Yes.
You nailed it.
I picked
now it's gone grey. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so they let us head over there, went over with a mate, and had a great time. Came back to school, year 12. What am I going to do after year 12? Go straight to uni. No, decided to defer that and had a plan to go back to Asia for a year and did that. Coming back to the beginnings of Old Quarter and giving you a bit of background into, I guess, our personal lives and how it all started as well. My first exposure to coffee or coffee growing agriculture was in the central highlands of Vietnam. And that was meeting robusta farmers when I was kind of riding through there on a motorbike. I took a few weeks to kind of get through those highland areas. And, you'd pull up on the side of the road and meet these farmers and have coffee with them. And, it's very traditional back then. It was like they would cook the coffee in a wok over an open flame. You drink it fresh. I guess that's probably similar to a Vietnam version of an Ethiopian coffee ceremony. But, so you get to know these people, and before you know it, there's a chicken getting killed, maybe a pig, and rice wine comes out, and you spend a few days rather than one afternoon. I guess, yeah, that really resonated with me because coming from a farm myself, just connecting with coffee farmers and the lives that they lead, it's not an easy life, especially for robusta farmers and especially back then. Very, very difficult, very, very humble, little to no money in it. Beautiful people. And I think that initial exposure to coffee growers and producers lit a bit of a fire under me back then. And that's probably, 10 years before we really got Old Quarter up and running. But that's the seed of the journey that got planted in my mind, I think.
And it was kind of fun because Vietnam was the first place that I ever went overseas. And then when we fell in love, was the first place that we went. So it's very much a part of the growth of us as people and also intertwined with our love story, which I love.
Cute.
Everybody. But
Look, great coffee, birthed from love. Like it.
Right. And I think, Yos has that deep kind of passion and kind of empathy for, I think, the experience that farmers have and connecting the dots between Australia and what you kind of saw there. And then I was in community development. So I was working, sending young people out on programs kind of all over Asia and into South America as well, but kind of saw firsthand how really targeted community development projects could transform communities and also saw the way that a lot of money got wasted. So I was kind of in the startup community. We kind of had that beautiful long background and then Yos found like coffee and that became your obsession, a hobby, roasting at home and kind of just this thing. And we were both looking for a career change and I mean, we can finally answer the question that you asked, but basically it all kind of melded together. And that fateful trip, we went to do a recce, we met with farmers, we met the people who we still work with today, 8 years on. And we had a couple of days in Hanoi at the end of that trip. And it just kind of solidified, I think, the beginning of the journey and that we were going to start a business. Or we tried to make the name simpler. Like, have you ever heard of a coffee company that has 4-letter name? No, we tried, but it was true to us, so it's just stuck. Yeah.
And how did that grow from like that single kind of starting trip to the entire Southeast Asian kind of market and importing and bringing in all of those coffees? How did it expand to there?
Southeast Asia sort of became our second home, like not only Vietnam, but spent, quite a few years over there, really, like through Laos, Cambodia, all the way through there. And I guess it just made sense for us.
And so we've kind of like listed a couple of these countries that we've talked about. You talked a lot about Vietnam. That obviously is very close to your heart, which is beautiful. But when we say Southeast Asian coffees, what countries are we actually talking about? Can we kind of break that down into what are the major producing regions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the audience is probably familiar with Indonesian coffees, but coffee was introduced to Asia probably 300 or 400 years ago, really. India and Indonesia were very early recipients of coffee. So that area has been growing coffee for a long, long time. And people, when we think about Vietnam, we think about the boom of Robusta that happened in the 80s and 90s. But Vietnam's also had coffee growing there for probably 120 years or more, longer than that. These regions are actually very well established in one sense and quite old growing regions. But we're talking Indonesia, we're talking Thailand, Philippines, China, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia does have coffee as well. Myanmar, India, where else? Malaysia even has it. It's all through there. So,
and I mean, in each country, there's a couple of different growing regions as well. And I think we're just starting to see those names come onto the scene. And I think at the moment we generalize it in Asian coffees or Southeast Asian coffees. But I think part of what we are so excited about and what what we want to focus on is really the growing regions, the people behind them. And with the producers that we work with, it's so incredible. They're in these communities saying, we want this community on the map. We want people to look at our growing region, Lang Biang in Vietnam is a place we've been working with for so long. We want people to say, oh yeah, that's it. Coffee from not just Vietnam, not just the South Central Highlands, but from Lang Biang. And then I think that's where we're going to go. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Would you consider Papua New Guinea as part of this kind of Southeast Asian, or is it generally considered in a different bracket?
Oh, I love this question. I love the topic of Papua. I think yes, but it's like flavor-wise maybe different, and it's a place that I think has the huge, it's such a big potential right next door to Australia. We have, honestly, we don't do any work there. It has been a little bit in the too hard basket for a few different reasons, but also because of the way we like to do business. We do like to get quite hands-on and really set up those relationships in a grassroots way. But man, Papua New Guinea, right next door, we've got a country with altitudes, 2,000 meters, phenomenal microclimates, forest diversity. They do have some really brilliant older varieties that are still in existence that probably can produce coffee on par with Ethiopia. And it's right next to Australia. And I really hope in the future that there's a way for Australian coffee professionals to engage with the farms and growers in Papua more than traveling much further around the world. Because if we can do that, we can really, not only help a lot of the growers and people there, but we get this phenomenal coffee right close to Australia. It doesn't have to travel halfway around the world. And this is me talking really high level because I've actually never been to Papua New Guinea. I don't know the challenges, but I love looking at maps. I love different cultures.
I looked at a map and I saw that close to Australia, that better for carbon footprint.
Yeah. I said, that's for me.
It makes sense. I'm sure there are some crazy coffee route stuff where coffee's going all over the world just to get to Australia when it could be a lot more efficient. I'm sure there's wild stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I think
definitely.
Our model really is if we begin a relationship, we maintain that for the long term. So that's the only reason why we haven't focused there, but it's definitely on our list. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will add, there's a small few changes goes a massive way. Like when we taste a Papua New Guinean coffee and you might have this phenomenal experience of flavor, and then you might, a year or two later, it tastes really earthy or something's changed. I think, these are the small improvements that good buyers can show up and really help with some small infrastructure changes.
I'm so excited about this conversation. There's so many parts to unpack here. So you talked a couple of times about flavor, and I think that's interesting. So some people, it's just starting to open up, okay, when we're talking about Southeast Asia, there's a huge, actually, array of countries and then sub-regions within those countries. So in terms of flavor, I think a lot of coffee consumers and professionals might be really familiar with Indonesian coffee and probably specifically Sumatran coffee, right? This is, if you think about Asian coffees, I reckon a lot of people, when they say, oh, what do I think of? And it's that profile. But aside from that, maybe more familiar flavor, can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the things that we might experience in the cup from some of these different regions? You guys have tasted so many different coffees. What's out there?
Yeah. It's incredibly diverse. Even within one country, you'll get a lot of diversity. I think the quality in Asia is really improving a lot. But, we're looking at certain varieties that are well established. But let's say it's hard to generalize certain countries, but it's very diverse. Say, let me think about Vietnam. So most people, their first experiences with Vietnam is probably more commodity grade coffee, maybe a bulk washed Arabica that's maybe around 1,000 meters grown. You're going to get chocolatey, nutty notes and that kind of thing. But you do get the area we source coffee from, where coffee's going from 1,500 meters up to 1,900 meters above sea level. And that's quite a distance away from the equator as well. So, but if those coffees, you're getting a lot more acidity, a lot more juiciness, a lot more fruitiness, depending on what varieties are growing there. When you do find those older Typicas and bourbons,
Mm.
You can get some phenomenal coffee that is like, does not taste like typical coffee. You'd think it's from Vietnam or whatnot. But then you've got countries like Myanmar, which did come onto the scene probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think there was a few really beautiful Myanmar coffees showing up, and that's another country that has coffees that can be, you know, on par with a really high-end Central or South American coffee, and even some that remind us of Kenya because they're growing SL28 and SL34 there. But yeah, I mean, it does, you know, range a whole spectrum, but I think back to Indonesia, processing, like the Giling Besar processing method, that is something that's like really distinct. And when you taste it, you kind of know straight away that, you know, I'm tasting something very, very unique here, and it's a Sumatran coffee, and that's all down to the processing, basically.
That's great. And I think that's the thing that's been so much fun for me is as you approach a table of coffees from this area of the world, it's not just even a region. I mean, we're talking about almost the bottom half of the globe, you know. There's this huge diversity, and there's some really unique different flavor profiles. There's some stuff that I think you kind of taste and go, this is a different way of thinking about coffee, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and as someone who's had a lot of coffee, I think the most expensive, best coffees in the world to me are slowly becoming not the best coffees in the world because there's only so many times I can have that coffee. And the thing that's exciting about coffee is the new experiences or like trying something different that kind of like opens up your eyes. Or I think for people who dive in as much as we do, I think that's true. So I think opening up your world to a whole new kind of range of flavors or experiences is such a cool thing to do. And I think it should be explored a lot more here. I did have a question about, so Vietnam is that the biggest producer of Robusta coffee in the world?
Yep.
Is that right?
The second largest producer globally after Brazil in all coffee.
Right.
And the largest in Robusta.
What's the Robusta like? Are you guys representing any of that in your coffee offering, or are you sticking to the Arabicas of the world? Or I saw there was what's the hybrid? Catamore.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Catamore and Robusta. I think, yes, we are excited to definitely showcase some Robusta. It's, Robusta is something we're not very familiar with here in Australia. I think like our impressions of it is, you know, classic old dark roast, Italian style crema on the espresso. That's what we use it for. We're seeing a huge wave of change when it comes to Robusta, particularly in Southeast Asia. And some of the Robustas we're trying there, you've got to think about it differently. Obviously, we have a preference for Arabica, and if you like clean coffee and whatnot, it's a different species. So we just got to bear that in mind. But in terms of like delicious flavored coffee, very exciting. And I think, we're gonna see a bit of that over the next couple of years.
It is funny that you threw out like Italian style darker roast, because I would throw out Vietnam style darker roast, because that's
reference point, guys.
Yeah. No, but just like, I'll talk about it later, but just famously, there's that kind of old perception of like Vietnamese coffee is that dark roasted, chuck in sweeteners to bring it to life kind of thing, in my mind anyway.
Yeah. And I think that's shifting a lot, right, guys?
It is. It really is. I think definitely it's so fun being on the bar in our cafes. And the reason why we opened a couple more was really just to lean into that showcasing of the product and to really change the bias. Like you said, people just, they just don't know and they haven't tasted it. So we will often be the very first taste of a single origin specialty coffee from Vietnam or Thailand or Laos or Myanmar. People don't know what to expect. And so it's an incredibly fun experience. And processing is probably not as far advanced as other countries who've been in the specialty game and had more influence from consumers and roasters and kind of that, that side of the industry. But it's still incredible, and the raw potential is really fun for people. But the most common things that people say, and it is in the boomers mostly, but they love to say, oh yeah, with condensed milk, café soda, that was my favorite coffee. I have to sit back and say, well, I'm going to serve you this filter, this really beautiful filter. We're going to go on a different journey. But that is the first thing that people think of. And then the next thing is really just, has it been through the digestive tract of a small animal? Like, is it the civet poo coffee?
I've never actually tried it. I'm sure
you didn't have a segment about this.
Yeah, Jesus.
And I loved, it doesn't matter how many times I hear it, I do have to start to say, you're not original. It's not the first. Sorry, we've heard that, but we are about to showcase you something very different. So we're slowly getting there.
It'd be cool to do a global history tasting board where you start out with the Vietnamese condensed milk coffee, and then you kind of go through the years to where it is now. So the customer can kind of have that experience. But I would say you'd probably want to finish. Maybe it needs to go in reverse. Where we are now back to, because you'd want to finish with the condensed milk coffee.
You don't want to stop there. You don't want to stop.
You don't want to kick that off. That's like a dessert in a cup. Delicious, by the way. Don't throw out this representation. I love a Vietnamese coffee.
Iced as well.
Oh yeah, there's something about that condensed milk that just transforms a dark bit of coffee into this chocolatey dessert that's just amazing. There's even
made for each other.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, just that iced thing that you mentioned. The coffee culture in Vietnam is so inbuilt and just a part of everyday life. And the little differentiations on iced coffee, and I'm not really sure. I haven't tracked back, the specialty drink phenomenon, but we've been watching that progress in Asia for 15 years, and it's kind of funny now because I feel like in Australia, everyone thinks that we came up with it or something. It's no, there's all these countries that sit just above Australia who are hot all year round and who have thousands of years of culinary history and have a massive, coffee culture every single day. And they actually come up with a lot of specialty drinks, and now we've invented it. But that could have been my
classic Australian. Yeah, we'll steal whatever we can take.
Yeah.
Now, kind of just jumping back to the personal stories here for a second. So was your background in coffee? Were you doing anything? I know you were talking about your entrepreneur, you did the traveling, but what's the kind of background that got you here?
Yeah, sure. So, I don't come from coffee. I came from a startup environment and community development, really. I spent 6 years recruiting people and supporting them to volunteer, basically in Asia and South America and Africa. So I really just fell in love with business, and YOS brought the product side. And I think that was kind of a winning formula for us. YOS has always been product, and then I kind of came to it later. But as we all know, the business of coffee is actually tricky. So that's kind of been my focus. But I think that kind of shared passion, vision, purpose around wanting to improve the lives of the people that grow coffee in any way that we can. We don't think we're changing the world or, anything massive, but just one relationship at a time has always kind of been our driving force.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. And a little birdie told me, is there some kind of science background that you've got going on?
Yeah, well, I did environmental science, and YOS was environmental science and tourism. And you can kind of see.
And tourism. Take that.
Know. But it's pretty fun when you meld our whole life story and you're like, but it makes a lot more sense now. And it's no wonder that no one else did this business. They've got the history in Asia, and then, YOS was kind of comes from that farming community, the forestry, environmental regeneration. I had the community development, and we kind of just molded it all together and the love story, of course. And then,
And the love story. Keep coming back to that.
That's it. It's solid.
With the environmental science kind of things, how is that informing your decisions and what you're doing now? Is that informing who you're working with there? How the practice, how does that affect your decision making?
Yeah, look, it's a big factor, I think. one of the things that drew me to coffee is definitely the agricultural side of it. And I think, if we're not using the tools that we have available to us and whatnot, I think that's one of the biggest challenges the coffee industry is facing over the next little bit. But I've got a lot of optimism in the future of coffee, just because if we implement and we continue our learning around how we can improve agriculture from a sustainability sense, that smallholders are going to be able to, have healthy businesses in the future, because that's really, really important for all of us. It's not just for the guys that have 2 million hectares, it's for the guys that have 2. And, if their yields are going up by 40% or down, fluctuating by 40%, that's a big knock on their business. So it does inform a lot. And that's really what lights me up. I love the taste of coffee, and I love the effect of how agriculture and different things we can utilize on the farm level and processing level to kind of not only provide sustainability for businesses, but also influence good things in the cup, because that's what coffee's all about.
Yeah. And you kind of you mentioned earlier that there was this beginning of a kind of your first touch point kind of with coffee producing and coffee farming, right? And you were kind of in that moment with robusta farmers, just hopped off the motorbike, hung out for a big party for many days with chickens and pigs and things. I think that was the story, right?
Yeah, I believe he said he murdered a chicken.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the genesis of Old Quarter. We heard it here. But,
when in Rome.
were there any other significant moments for you? Obviously, that was like right at the beginning, and then you were kind of forming these ideas of what kind of a business, what even was a business in coffee importing and roasting and learning all of that. But were there any other kind of catalyzing moments with the producers or relationships there that you went, oh, this has got the kernel, this is really what it's going to be all about for us?
Yeah, look, I think I guess coffee was a passion, right? It became a hobby of mine. I was roasting at home and really diving into that world of coffee. And actually, we both saw a real big gap in the market here in Australia and for Asian coffees, because we're spending a lot of time in Asia. A lot, Ames for her work, me for travel. And we just said, hey, let's go for it. Let's see if we can get some of these coffees in. And originally we, and this will probably flow into some things we'll discuss later, but originally we didn't have an exact plan around what our business looks like today back then.
Plan. No.
Yeah. It was more.
Thought we had a plan, but we look at it now.
It was more about the importing and the working with the farmers.
And we just knew that we wanted to have an impact.
Yeah.
We worked with Pat and Tam, who we still work with today, and 8 years on or even more. So we got 1 pallet of coffee from them, 700 kilos. And I think last year we got 11 ton, so their growth story has just been so intertwined with ours. And it's incredible now, like our customers who've been with us, since the beginning, know them by name and know their coffees. And, they're really, really close and have become really amazing friends. But, they're ethnic minority within Vietnam. So they're Kahot people. They're not Vietnamese people. So it's another layer of, these growing regions, the connection to the place and the coffee history, really. We're not even talking, as we said, generalizing about Vietnam, and then there's the growing region, and then there's actual people. There's this whole story that's yet to kind of be told and understood in the industry. But when you asked about that relationship or that moment that kind of changed everything, I think we learned so much from them and around their struggles. So I don't need to say too much, but there's a lot that goes on around like debt slavery, people trying to take advantage of farmers in that region, and they weren't immune from that either. And so, yes, it took us a lot of time to build that trust, and that just has really stayed with us. So we knew right from the beginning that we wanted to work with smallholder farmers. We didn't want to work with estates because, we're really environmentally focused, and we thought that that was a way that we could have environmental kind of impact. We love cultural diversity, so we knew that we wanted to kind of support ethnic minority people. Plus, most of the world's coffee is grown by ethnic minority people anyway. We just don't realize it. Yeah, I think that focus on trust and relationships up front, that's why we made a commitment that, okay, don't do anything that you've not thought through or that you can't commit to. But there was this one moment which still gets me a little bit weak in the knees, about during COVID or after COVID. It was the first time that we could get out of the country. And we went to their community, had a barbecue, caught up, and obviously got a bit pissed because, as you do, and, kind of half through a translator because of the multiple languages, they shared with us that, it had been so tough, and they weren't, they had thought about should they keep going with coffee, but their commitment to wanting to supply to us was the thing that kept them going. And we were just so moved by that, because the thing that had kept us going through COVID and had caused us an immense amount of problems was we committed to everything we said we were going to buy, we bought. And that was a dangerous thing to do, but we knew that, do you put your money where your mouth is? Is this the business we wanted to start? Do we really mean what we say? Are we going to take the risk burden from the producers that we work with, or are we just going to walk away? And we did show up, and we did buy that coffee. And it's something that I just think is that's how we do it, and it's not because of something we learned or because we had a good business plan. It's more just that is how you need to do it, because there's no one holding you accountable. There's no government body that says, oh, you broke a contract with some ethnic minority farmers in Vietnam. No. And that could have, changed their lives. And we saw that happen everywhere. Particularly in Sumatra, just big roasters from all over the world just said, oh, well, we won't buy it now. And there's nothing that they could do. So sorry, I get a bit emotional about it, but really, that one relationship has taught us so much, and we've modeled everything we've done off that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. It's kind of so nice to see how it comes back to the people. And just on that question there, you're saying a lot of those roasters were pulling out during COVID, you're saying, because of that period, or just in general?
Oh, look, I think we've seen it all. We have seen it all, and we still see it. But of course, COVID was a scary time, and I know that there were so many businesses under stress, and I know that for some of those businesses that pulled out of those contracts, that maybe they would have wrecked their business, and there's no judgment. But I think the learning really for us, and the thing that inspires us and motivates us and makes us who we are as a company, and the thing I want to see so much more of in the industry, is understanding that the risk sits with producers. And if we want smallholders to stay in the game and we want to drink great coffee, we really need to prioritize sharing that burden more. And it is complex. In Laos, YOSIR is doing an incredible job, and has done over the last 4 or 5 years, to build direct relationships with producers. And we've got a lot of great relationships there now, but it's wild there, the way that farmers have been burned. Just put in an order and we'll pay 50%, but they don't pay the other 50% because something happened and they walked away, or there wasn't a proper communication about the quality that was needed, or maybe the quality wasn't delivered that was expected, but there was a miscommunication. At the end of the day, that company walks away, but this is people's livelihoods. And I think that's what most people just don't understand. And don't want to understand.
So that's why these conversations are so important, to kind of bring that up. Because, let's jump into talking about the ethics of it all and what you guys are doing. I think that even for me, that it's so blurry of really understanding what you're buying when you're buying a bag of coffee sometimes, and where it comes from. I think we'll start at you're a registered social enterprise. So already there, I feel like there's a million definitions around the globe of what that could kind of mean. And I had to look up what it meant here in Australia and what it meant in other places. But let me ask you, what does that mean for you? Because I think that's probably what's more important here. What does being a social enterprise mean for you guys?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, isn't it? I guess we've never lent into certifications. Being a social enterprise for us is being guided by, having impact and purpose through everything that we do. And I just want to, we're not perfect. And anyone who's listening to this, who's a business owner, knows that, you're not perfect for sure. And we can go and be B Corp certified or whatever it is. I think it's good if the intention's there. We've put some structure around how we want to work with smallholder farmers. And that's what helps us have our kind of North Star and guiding light. But yeah, you're right. How do you define any of these things?
At registered side, I mean, the values and the living it out are kind of the critical parts. And you kind of mentioned just a moment ago, like people approach this with the intention. And I think there's this through line in the specialty coffee industry, right, where we talk about, specialty coffee means that no one's going to get screwed over, theoretically, right? That if we get better quality coffee, we're paying more for it. And the inference is everyone's going to do okay out of that. Producers are. But it's actually not the case in a lot of circumstances. And it takes a lot of effort to shift it really in that direction. And even if you have the intent, I think there's this idea of like through good times and hard, that you guys really showed up there through the difficult times is a really important part of kind of how you kind of do business.
I love how polite you were, just sitting there kind of nodding your head as I'm rambling about stuff that isn't even really just like, oh, okay, I'll help him out here. I'll throw him a bone. Just like, no, not at all. But what is something that's real is what you refer to as daily happy. Can you tell us what daily happy is?
Oh, I love it. You haven't even talked about the brand. This is so fun. I guess, can I just go back? Because I think it ties into what we were talking about, certification, all of those different types of things. It is a challenge to be in this industry and correctly explain what you do and how you do it, and to do it in one sentence. I would be lying if I said it wasn't sometimes a little bit frustrating, knowing the lengths and the resources and the commitment and everything that we've done over the past 8 years to kind of be true to our story, to just see people who we know work nowhere near a farmer, say direct trade and those kinds of things. But I get it, and there's no judgment there. But for us, it was like, how do we just find a way to tell our little story without using all those different buzzwords, and try and just sort of give people a sense of who we are. And it was just a fun way of connecting this luxury product that has no caloric value, that we do not need to drink, but that literally makes our life so good. Here in Australia and all around the world as coffee consumption goes up, and then all the way through to this kind of how we try and source and how we just try and give more than we receive in the communities that we work with. Because, I say, like, it is our own personal daily happy to like even have the privilege to work with people and learn from them. So yeah, I've probably done a terrible job at explaining that, but you know what I mean.
No, but that's right. But daily happy would come back to, right, your fair value exchange kind of proposition between the farmers and everything, right? Like, how does that?
It really does.
Yeah, how does that work, and how is that different from out there? Because we see a lot of the time, like, fair trade or different labels kind of slapped on stuff, but there's still probably exploitation that could be happening behind the scenes under different labels. And as a consumer, how do I know what I am drinking is actually supporting the people at the farm? So what are you doing? How is it different from you guys, and what can people expect?
That's such a good question. Yeah, God, it is fraught with danger, isn't it? People think they buy a certification and that means X. Or as you said, Ben, people think we're in the specialty industry and it means that there is no harm done. And it's just so complex. So I'm still learning every single day and trying not to judge. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just think the way we want to do business is win-win. It's not through a complex structure of, if these ethics aren't met, our business is failing. It's more about, we've built the business that makes us feel good inside, and hopefully the people we work with the same way. And honestly, if you have something too solid mapped out and you try and apply that, like the same in every place you work, you're going to come up against hurdles. So
we've seen that go so wrong.
Yeah. So like you guys know, you've all traveled. It's like there's so many differences with, you know, culturally and different things logistically. And so it's about figuring out, you know, figuring out the people that you want to work with and the product, and is there a spark where we can do something great together, you know, and make coffee the catalyst for that, and then we build out, you know, how that's going to work and make that win-win from there. But it is a little bit different from place to place, I would say.
Yeah, and that comes back to my kind of community development, because I saw those, okay, we do clean water and for $1 this and don't do it, like, okay, that sounds bad. Of course, that's incredible and do that. But when people have quotas and they try and do certain things and nobody wants it, or they do a big project and then next year no one's looking after that project, and so there's actually no real impact. We are so simple. We just work with smallholder farmers. We commit to them for the long term. We buy what we say we're going to buy. And then we support based on need. And so every single year we do multiple projects, of which we're pretty shit at actually telling the world about. But anyway, it can be everything from like, just small infrastructure projects. So we've supported drying sheds and, you know, raised beds and pieces of equipment, moisture meters, everything that's kind of win-win. Like you said, it's like, we've already done the good thing. We've already understood your conditions. We've already understood how much it costs you to grow that product. We're already making sure we're paying fairly. And at the end of the day, it's not about, this is the quality that I pay for this, that at this price. It's about, what does it cost you to produce that product, and can we find a way? So that's already got complexities, which would be a whole episode to explain, right? And so we already go through all of that, and then it's like, how do we give more than we receive? And then we've done road paving, we've done fruit trees and interplantings for better revenue, and most recently we've done a lot of clean water projects with schools in the growing regions in Laos. Like, that's because the basic needs there aren't even met. So we felt really drawn to kind of do that. So yeah, there is no kind of straightforward answer, but it's kind of best based on community need and what we know is kind of right at the time, I guess. Yeah.
You've obviously got, you know, hugely strong guiding principles and values, so that are really directing that, and that's shining through. That's super obvious. But you kind of talk a lot about the relationship as well being like critical and almost the thing that drives how do you get involved in each instance. So just to give people a little bit of a picture, you kind of touched on it there, Yos, a little bit, but the beginning of a relationship like that, you know, you're entering into a new region, you're meeting people, you're getting the lay of the land. What is forming or laying the foundation for a relationship that you hope to be this long-term thing? What does that look like? What do you go through?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and it's really, look, you've just got to rock up and you've got to listen. That's the number one tool that you need to employ. So yeah, spending time with, like, say it's a family and, you know, we want to work with a family, they're producing coffee. I'll go and I'll sit and I'll hear everything that they have to tell me about their coffee journey and where it's gone wrong and the problems and the challenges. And I'll take note of all of that and think about, okay, how do I not stuff this up? What do I need to do to be...
How do I not make this worse?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it does, you know, it does help having the background in Asia and understanding certain cultural nuance and all the things. That helps a lot. But yeah, it does really come down to that, because everyone's got different challenges. And to be honest, like, you go to some places, we work with a couple of co-ops, right? And in that sense, my life's so easy. Like, the coffee's great. I rock up. We go around. We meet the farmers. Blah blah blah. We cut the coffees. They on spec, beautiful. They'll get the coffee to port. I take it over from there. That is so cruisy. Like, I love that. But
we've obviously vetted that whole relationship all previously.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah,
at the export side.
Yeah. But on the flip side, like at the moment, Ames just mentioned Laos before. Like, That for me is like really, really hands-on. So we're doing work on the farm level, all the things, but we're also, we buy the parchment. So we've set up our little dry mill, and, some farmers we might, we'll get them to separate. They're only producing 80 kilos of Typica, so we'll separate that because I really love that variety from that farm. And we'll just, we'll do that. We'll work with farmers, and obviously, how much is it going to cost for you guys not to mix the Typica with X and X and X and blah, 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 figure out what works, come to an agreement. And so then we're buying parchment. There's all of those challenges. How has it been dried, blah, blah, blah. What do we need to invest there? And then it comes down to a logistical challenge after milling. We've got to export that out of a landlocked country to Thailand or Vietnam and through to Australia. So everywhere's a little bit different. But I think if you were giving people advice, if you're in the industry and you're thinking about going and doing this, I think the lessons would be that every relationship is different, right? And every relationship is different. And so approach it with that mindset, and then do less and do it well, because you will undermine your reputation and your ability to build trust so fast. So and so that's why, you maybe asked earlier on about how did we start in, the next relationships. And this is something that I think I was kind of mildly embarrassed about at the start, but now I look back on as part of our core origin story and something that we should be proud of. But we served one washed single origin from Vietnam for a year before we got our second relationship, and that was tough, and people didn't take us seriously. And somebody came 2 years later and said, I thought you were going to fail. That was so embarrassing for you. It was like, yeah, that was tough. But,
also, what a dick.
Yeah.
Thanks for underestimating me, kick you in the shins. But that's the thing, right? Like what Yost just explained is for sure, find an incredible co-op that aligns with your ethics, that takes care of the farmers, that's going to help that region thrive, that's going to make impact in the lives of the people that are a part of that co-op, and maybe start there. We had one relationship and then a couple of co-ops, and then that kind of freed our business up to be able to then spend more time and more resources in countries that needed it from us. So from a strategy point of view, I think that's kind of what would work.
Apart from this one person that came in and said, you're embarrassing, I thought you were going to fail, how is the rest of the world kind of taking these positive intentions and the ethical practices that you're using, as well as representing Southeast Asian coffee? What are the consumers kind of taking away from that? Do you feel like they're just enjoying a great cup of coffee, or are they loving this deeper ethical side that you're diving into?
Well, I think the fact that we survived by having one coffee definitely testament to the fact that people loved it.
It must have been a great coffee.
It was incredible coffee. Still one of the favorites. That's Pat and Tam's coffee. And I mean, we attribute them to building our business because, it's their product that we serve. So that's what we talk about, really valuing that. I think everyday people who don't have the same bias that people in the industry have, just rock up and say, wow, yum, favorite, love. And then they realize that there's more to the business, and they know that it's just us and them and the producers. And then there's so much loyalty there. So I think definitely if anyone is thinking about going the extra distance and it's right for them and it's a real purpose, then there'll definitely be benefits in terms of their position in the market. I think that's just a benefit for us. One of the other super cool things that we underestimated or didn't even expect is that so many people have traveled to Asia. When you're a specialty coffee person and you're like, oh my God, this coffee from this place in the remote part of a certain part of Africa that no one is they can't. But when they come in, even if they've never tried a single from Vietnam or they don't know that much about any of the growing regions, they kind of go, I went there, I loved it, I had a personal experience. And that's why I truly think that the popularity is only going to grow, because there's just that personal connection, that you just can't get in places that you've not actually been before. And Asia's like a second home for so many of us.
Yeah. I just want to throw in a quick shout as well. Like, I think, I think roasters should give a shout to their importers as well. Like, I think it's one of those things like, basically we're an importer ourselves. So we're a coffee trader, but we consume all of our own coffee. And I think we don't need to be super dogmatic about things. Like, there's so much value being added throughout the supply chain. It's just it's a matter of like, making sure it's good on the farmer level. But, like importers do a lot of work as well. And I don't think it's sustainable for everyone to go out and do a true direct trade model. I think we need to lean on each other and figure out what business works best for us, because and what's sustainable, because like our model is quite difficult. You know what I mean? Like, it would be great if we could do like 50-50, like lean on an importer so they can have that cash flow burden and all of that. But yeah, leading back to the story where Ames is like, we started off with 700 kilos and now we're working in 7 different countries and we've got like probably 60 different lots of different coffees. So it's bloody wonderful that we're here, but it was a challenge.
But I think it's so true what you said. We maybe, because we're so passionate about how we do it and it works for us, but it's so complex in the industry and there are a lot of people doing great things. We don't think that our way is above anyone else's way. It's just that we do need to focus on the producers more.
No, just before the pod, you were saying our way is the best way and everyone's... What do you mean? Oh, sorry.
Have you seen my T-shirt that says our way?
Our way or the highway.
But that does lead me into the next question, which, answer if you want to. I don't want to talk about, the business side too much. But is this, it feels like paying fair price, direct trade, doing all that. Is it a sustainable business model doing that? Or are you saying that maybe extending on that and changing a little bit works, or you have a fully vertical, vertically integrated. I was like, vertical integration, vertically integrated business. Is that kind of what makes it more profitable?
Yeah, because I think also, if we've got people listening in, right, who are roasters or cafe owners or maybe even importers who are vibing with a lot of what you're saying and have a similar shared values, how approachable is it for, like, everyone's got to find their own path and it's different contexts around the world, but how approachable is it to have a sustainable supply chain, ethical supply chain, and kind of make it a business?
How interesting is that? And there's probably a few different ways to look at it, but I would say at a high level, we're able to pay producers more because we do the work that other people would need to take a cut for. So that's how that works. I think folks could start off with 1 or 2. I think if they're looking to add a direct relationship, going all in, I think, is very risky, right? I think it's been a tough time.
Back to one of the things that made us sort of figure out early on what kind of business we're going to run is realizing that the margins are super, super slim in green coffee. Like, if you're an importer, right, you might only make $1 or $2 a kilo, and you've got interest rates and all of the things to factor in there. When that's what made us dive into, like, I already was learning how to roast and whatnot. So we decided to go the full gamut. We roasted coffee because margins are better that way. And then we started cafes as well. We had we stored our green bean in the same place we roasted and served coffee. Like, a lot of people do that when they're starting out. But yeah, you really need to figure out your margins and sustainability. But I do think, it's definitely possible if you're an established roastery and you're doing a certain amount of volume that you can probably add one direct relationship. But it depends on how hands-on that relationship needs to be, right? Because there's exporters who are ready to ship you out a couple of pallets from port, and that's really easy and a great little relationship, great way to start. Or there's maybe like you meet a family and you want to help them improve their infrastructure.
That's the one we think you should do. That's the one that's worthwhile doing, not the one like, oh, we just rocked up and got it ourselves and then put direct trade on the thing. It's better.
Yeah, hot takes, I think, are coming in now.
Oh.
Bit of sizzle.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, I think the question here is, from your experience, does it look like you either, scale is the answer, right? Like if you are large enough, then you can invest in kind of taking on board that risk and that effort to go and not only have the relationship and the sourcing kind of investment, but also do it ethically, do it in a way that is sustainable for the producers and pay that higher cost. Or if you're smaller scale, you might need to approach that vertical integration.
I think so. I think that's definitely a good clarifying thing. And I guess the beauty of putting the energy in is that it is that, like, that's what we call that fair value exchange. We've got to realize that we just get, can you imagine being a coffee professional and all of a sudden you have a direct relationship with a farm? Like what you're going to learn, how you're going to understand this industry and the supply chain, the depth, like it's so hard to even explain what it is like for me to see people drinking one of these coffees from Laos, and I know the work that's gone into that product and what it took and everything that Yos has even done after those farmers, and like just to see people drinking it. Like we can send photos of the product and people loving it. It's just like everybody could have that. But yeah, just do it in a way that's not going to cripple your business.
Always a good point. Don't cripple your business. Top tip.
Right. I'm writing that one down.
Yeah,
Don't cripple.
So we've kind of heard about this amazing story of like the business that you've built and the journey that you've gone on, and it's really inspiring, I have to say. It's beautiful to hear how deeply embedded you are in that story. I want us to like shift gear a little bit and start looking the future, right? From here on out. And a few little quick questions for you to kind of get into. Out of all of the origins you're either dealing with or ones that maybe you're not yet, is there a particular region or a country that you're most excited about coming up into the future?
I like that question.
Do we only get to pick one? Only
Yes, one.
Oh, shit.
One each.
Yos,
Go
you
on.
go
Oh,
first.
each.
And then it's a showdown.
See, I'm the main host. I'm like, one.
Good cop, bad cop.
All right. For me, it's definitely Laos at the moment, because the thing that excites me about coffee the most is raw potential. We all love drinking phenomenal coffees that are exquisite and beautiful and
Process to exception.
yeah. But I think for me, tasting coffees in Laos, I can see that they can really get there, and they're not there yet, but they have all of the right conditions. So yeah, Laos is the place that excites
Laos
me
is
the
Yos's
Potential.
pick.
Yeah.
Ames?
I am going to say Yunnan in China, Ben. That's where we met
Nice.
you. I think I got that kind of shivers in my spine, kind of realization about China's culinary past and their history and their palates. And I think that the way China moves is just so fast. So yeah, I think that I don't even think we know that what we'll see. But what also kind of excites me about that is that, you know, from our perspective, as I mentioned, there is a bit of bias, but people seem to be in the specialty scene a bit more excited about China coffee. So I think that could be like a strategic gateway for us to kind of get the industry to taste what else we've got. So that's why I'm excited. Yeah. There's origins we've not yet started, but you only gave us one. So
Yeah. Well, that's what you get. We'll have to tune in next time to find out what the rest of
That's
them
it.
are.
Follow-up app.
No, just snuck it in there.
Okay, let's think about the sustainable side of things and the ethical supply chain. If we were to cast our vision forward a little bit, you've been working in supply chain and trying to improve that process. What would you say one of the most important things for us to be focusing on as a community for supporting those supply chains and getting them, improving them, nurturing them forward?
Yeah, for me, it's like figuring out agricultural sustainability and you know, everything from getting the right varieties that are sustainable for a farmer's income and not having bias there. And I think, just really implementing different levels of sustainable agricultural practice for sure.
We want coffee to survive, and we do need to rethink things. I don't know. I guess the thing that I would just say is something that we talk about a lot is like what quality means, and I know we all want to be drinking these really high scoring coffees, but so much of the world's coffee production is something a little bit different. So supporting producers, it's hard to explain, but we need to rethink it a little bit.
Yeah, I completely know what you mean. I think we've done some pods in the past where we looked at it similar. Like there's a lot more factors that come into it than just the taste. There's the story, the people, the evolution of it, how it's changing. And even seeing a coffee evolve over years and years as you invest into it is such an amazing thing. So sometimes there should be it feels like a different grading system than just this like quality number next to a coffee,
Yeah. Thanks, Ron. Look, I'll say stuff half-assed. You clarify it. We do a good job.
There are just these like terrible people called Q graders out there that love to just slap a number next to a coffee and think that gives it all its value. But I'm standing and I'm saying I'm not a Q grader.
Hey, we've always said coffee is more than a number.
Yeah,
certainly
okay.
That's definitely been never been the sole focus.
But just before we turned this on, you said coffee was just a number, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
See, she's just turning
that's
back.
What we call a callback in the biz. That was amazing. All right, let's bring it up. Let's bring this ship in. Is that what they said? Let's land this plane.
Land the plane.
Let's bring this ship into the just slowly pulling into the dock here.
His sound effects, man.
Could you give us one piece of advice for an aspiring ethical entrepreneur?
My piece of advice would be connect very early on to why you do what you do. I mean, I know that the past 8 years has been like a bit of a run kind of macroeconomic wise. Through our business, we were sort of just getting our feet with our second relationship, 2019. Yeah, when COVID hit, and then we had kind of global shipping crisis and the dollar tanked, and then there was record inflation and like people's spending habits changed. Like it's been a go, but I don't think that's unique. I think that business and particularly coffee, it goes in cycles and it's definitely challenging. So if you are an ethical entrepreneur that wants to do something with coffee, figure out what's going to keep that fire going, because it's been so profound for me on the times when I was just like, why the fuck did we do this again? Because sometimes it is like that. And if you have a purpose, you have a reason to keep going. And that's, anything hard is kind of, anything worth doing is hard, as they say. So it will feel hard at times. And I think the people who don't last are the ones who start a brand because of a reason that isn't truly, truly true to them. Yeah.
Yeah, figure out that why and that key purpose and just always think back. It's nice to always have it like written down and clearly articulated. I find myself doing it sometimes just traveling and looking back and being like, that's right. That's what I'm doing. Like, stick true to that. And,
anchor to it.
Yeah, anchor to it and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
That's the ship pulling out again.
Last couple of questions here for you. Let's shine a little bit of a light on someone who you think is pretty amazing. Is there anyone out there in the world that you want to just do a shout out, who inspires you, gets you excited about what you're doing or what you think the coffee industry should be paying attention to?
Shout out.
Ooh, shout out. So I would love to choose Rama. She is the female leader of the co-op we work with in Sumatra. She comes from a coffee farming family, but she's really, built an incredible organization that supports, I don't even know, over 1,100 or 1,200 farmers across her region. As a woman, as a business owner, she really excites me so much. And I think she's getting a lot of recognition now, which is well deserved. I think sometimes we're a bit tall poppy in Australia and we don't really celebrate those like big wins, but her co-op's gotten large and she's supporting her family, but and she's successful, but the ethics have stayed the same. So that's so exciting. And I think Indo and Sumatra's constantly growing, but she's quite an exciting and inspiring figure in that whole region. Yeah.
And for me, so probably, I mean, there's so many to list, right? And for me, it's always going to be producers. But yeah, I'm going to say Mr. Keo. He's based in Vietnam at the moment. He's actually a Japanese guy, and he's got, I think, 30 years background of coffee roasting in Tokyo. He moved to Vietnam around 2010, 2012, and he, implemented that, I guess, those beautiful Japanese, master your craft, obsessions that just can really turn things into something beautiful. Yeah. And he's done that with some coffee farmers who work based in the region where we work. And I've just been so in awe to see the success that they've achieved there. And we did a trip together to SEAJ in Tokyo last year, and we, brought a bunch of Kohop farmers together to Japan, and their first time there. And he's really helping to put a spotlight on their coffees and do some great things. So, yeah, Mr. Keo.
I was going to say how beautiful again, but I guess that's what a shout out section is, right? Saying something
Lots of
nice.
Beautiful stuff.
It was beautiful.
Fuzzies. Yeah.
Just some warm fuzzies to take us in there. And now for some not so warm fuzzies, we're going to take you into a little extra hot take with two sugars. Two sugars. Now, Ames, I got to say, especially for me, I feel like there was a few little hot takes bubbling at the surface as we were going through there, and I wanted you to launch in, but you're too cuddly and nice and friendly. But I'm giving you the floor now to dive into your hot take and just let them have it.
Oh gosh, well, at Mice I said that coffee needed to be $8.50, so I'm getting a bit of flack from that. Yeah, but I think hot take is that Southeast Asia really will be like the next wave of specialty coffee. I think we've been doing this for 8 years, and we are just starting to see people get really excited about this. And I think it has to be. So yeah, interrogate your biases, guys, because you're missing out if you're not focusing on Asia right now.
Amazing hot take. And who do you think needs to change that bias? Like where would that be pointed at?
Oh, look, I don't even think it's intentional, right? We just go with what we know. And there's just not a lot of representation, but definitely punters, our specialty coffee lovers, yes, they might be a little bit nervous, but they're willing to give it a go. I think what we're trying to do at the moment is crack into the guest roaster scene. People who have guest roaster, give us a crack. Give our coffees a crack.
Nice. Shout out.
I was actually looking at that and thinking about it earlier. I know when I was a little barista, I didn't even think about it. I would just be like, I've got my coffee roastery. What single do you have this week that I can use? But if you're a barista or a cafe owner, A, talk to your coffee roastery, or B, have a guest roaster and look elsewhere to kind of explore these new avenues. You can, hit up these guys and just go, give me some tasty coffees out of Vietnam,
Yes, people.
Can I throw in another little quick hot take? I think...
yeah.
Double sizzle.
That's boring. Let's go. What is,
Robusta's coming back, baby.
Yeah.
No, I think...
yeah,
I reckon in 2 more years from now, Robusta's not going to be a dirty word in the specialty coffee industry. Obviously, it's not going to be something that we all go, I'm having a Robusta first thing we wake up in the morning. But I think, for sustainability, for where the coffee industry is going, blah, 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 I think we need to open our minds to new possibilities with varieties and species. And I think Robusta, definitely keep your eyes on that space, because we're seeing some phenomenal Robusta coffees being produced in Asia now. And very excited
like an enjoyable, fine Robusta espresso. Most people
Get
can't
your
eat
palates ready.
Yeah.
I would say,
delicious.
I would say it's not even the specialty coffee world though. You said it's a dirty word in specialty coffee. From advertising in, would it be the 90s? There was a certain point where every even if it was like Shell or 7-Eleven, it was like 100% Arabica, like Robusta is dirty, 100% Arabica. Like it became this like advertising mission of every kind of core coffee principle. So I think even down to like the everyday coffee drinker, they think that Robusta is a dirty word.
It's a maturation of the market, right? Is that phrasing and that kind of pitch of 100% Arabica was there to really differentiate from really poor quality commercial coffee and was saying, hey, we're using better stuff. But it's kind of we're growing out of that where we don't need to have that blunt kind of this or that. It can actually be quality in lots of different angles. So, yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be some exciting stuff coming to our cups soon.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
That's right.
I mean, what a great episode. I've learned so much.
Thank
you so much for spending the time with us. Now, how can listeners learn more, visit your cafes? What can they do? Give us some info.
Oh,
we're rolling out the red carpet for you.
Oh, I love that. Okay, cafes are in northern New South Wales in Ballina, hinterland of the Gold Coast in Murwillumbah, and then southern Gold Coast, Coolangatta, north Gold Coast, Southport. We sell online, guys. Can get on the website, can get us in for a guest roast spot, or shoot us as a wholesale. Like, we've got the whole spread.
Yeah, and also just reach out, have a chat. Yeah, I think if you're interested to learn more about coffees from Asia, definitely hit Ames and I up, either through our socials or if you see us at an event. Love to chat more about this exciting growing region right next door.
We want to see these regions not like represented on every bar in the country. It has to happen.
That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of that background and story and helping us understand and talk about what is Southeast Asian coffee, so much more. Hopefully people have got a lot out of it. And,
can we have the jingle again?
Oh,
Southeast Asian coffee, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Southeast Asian coffee, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, it hurts, honestly.
If you have any questions, you can hit us at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. Did that roll off the tongue? Did that really work? Or hit us up on our socials. It's Just Coffee Podcast or .podcast. Just type it in. You'll find it. Make sure to follow us on all of your good platforms for podcasts. We're on all of them. And if you can't get us, then your platform you're using sucks. So there's that is. Thank you again, guys, for joining us. And there was that really important message that you wanted to tell everyone. What did you want to say again?
Drink tasty coffee and don't let your bias influence you.
Oh, there it is. That's what he had to say. Hey.